Hello again, this is Rob Chadwick from ADL, and this is the third in a quick series of video tutorials on how to use the Virtual World Framework Sandbox application. In the first one, we looked at camera motion. By now you should be able to kind of move the camera around space, get to where you need to be. In the second one, we looked at selecting objects. For a quick recap, you can click on them to select them if you're in selection mode here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the various transform tools. The tools that allow you to grab and move these objects around space. In the previous example, we saw just the basics with the movement tool. And that movement tool is what you see here on the screen. The X, Y, Z, and then the plane handles allow you to move it in a plane. So the movement tools all take the form of kind of a graphic that floats on top of the object and has handles for different axes. Each handle lights up when you get the mouse near it or over it, and allows you to transform on a different axis. The basic movement tool allows you to move on the X or the Y or the Z, or the XY plane, or in this case the YZ plane, or the XZ plane. If I want to do something other than move it, for instance rotate it, I can grab the rotate tool. You can switch between the tools here on the toolbar. Move, rotate, and scale. Move, and here's rotate. The rotate tool has these kind of floating toruses, I guess they are. And again, it's blue for Z, yellow for Y, red for X. Let's look at how this works. I want to rotate on the X axis, so I'll grab the X handle. I just place my mouse over it, over the kind of graphic. I'll push down with the left mouse button, and I'll trace around the diameter of the circle. As long as I keep rolling my mouse around the diameter of the circle, the object will rotate on that axis. Similarly, I can move around the Y, or, and this will spin like a top, I can move it on the Z. And look how I keep the mouse right on the circle. You don't have to stay on the circle, but you have to kind of rotate around the axis in space that defines that circle. So in this case, I'm rolling around the Z-axis, which allows me to spin like a top. And notice how I can go backwards or forwards to go in each direction. Finally, we have the scale tool. Now the graphics for the scale tool are kind of crazy looking. You'll just have to bear with me on this one. Let's grab one of these other objects that's not already rotated. The scale tool has a couple of plane handles, X, Y, and Z. Notice how I just put my mouse over them and they highlight. If I grab the X and I pull out, it gets bigger on the X, or smaller and bigger if I grab this side. Similar for the Y, and similar for the Z. The big object that floats in the middle, which really kind of messes up the graphics a little bit, this thing probably needs to be Z sorted. This one allows me to kind of pull up and out, or down and in, and I can scale uniformly. That tool is a little bit difficult to use. I have to go back and look at the math that defines it. It seems like from some angles it works better than others, and I'm not exactly certain which is which. But there you go. So, move, rotate, scale. And a little trick, if anybody is an old school 3ds Max fan, W, E, and R on the keyboards will flip between them. There's also kind of a super secret special mode. If you hit R, oh maybe not. Let's go. It's not R on the keyboard. Let's go to Transform Multi. There it is. I guess there's no keyboard shortcut. This tool just gives you all of the transforms together. You just have to be very careful to grab it on the axis that you want. There's lots of little things in here. With this one, scale uniform is these big blocks at the outside edge. I guess I can't actually grab those, huh? But you can't, there we go, scale non-uniform. I'll have to look at that. So, I wouldn't worry too much about that guy. Let's just stick with the regular move tool. And let's talk about something kind of interesting. And to make this make more sense, I'm going to have to get rid of some spheres. I'm going to select them, and then just hit delete on the keyboard. I'm going to need something that is not quite perfectly round, so you can see what's different. So I just hit the cube button up here to make a cube. This is an interesting topic, and it's called transformation spaces. When this cube is aligned perfectly with the world, moving it is pretty simple. But what if I pull up my rotation tool, and now I want to move it along its own direction, right? I want to go towards its top. This can be tricky. Now I could grab the plane handle right here, and I could try to go like this, but you'll note that I get these little stair steps, and that may not be exactly correct. If I want to be careful to move it precisely relative to its own directions, I need to switch to local transformation tools. Up top here we have local coordinates and world coordinates, and you'll see that the movement tool changes. Now that the object is rotated, the X points on what's called its local X-axis. In this case, this is the X-axis that it used to have when it was not rotated. If I switch to my rotation tool, watch how the tool moves with the object. Look how the Z and the X move together. Whereas if I go to global space and I roll it, the Z and the X don't move together. This can make it possible for you to do orientation changes that are very difficult without it. For instance, if I want to spin like a top on its own axis, that would be impossible without having the tool change to this mode. In this case, I can grab its local Z and roll it like a top. Now the action with the mouse is the same as before, but the results are different depending on how you have that tool configured. The important note here, scale tool, whether it's in global or local, it's actually going to create transformations in local space. So watch the Z, all right? The Z is going this way. If I put it in world space and grab and move the Z, it's still going to go the same way it did when it was in local space. That's because I find kind of, it doesn't do anything useful. Really, we should just change the graphics to make this show itself in local space. But transforming or scaling something non-uniformly in global space is really kind of silly. So that's it. That's very simple. I guess that ended up a little bit longer than one of the previous ones. But that's how you can manipulate the position, orientation, and scale of these objects in local and world space. There you go.